the songs that Tamara sings to today sort of went along with this theme, survive and thrive. And a lot of women are really bogged down by what people say to them, what people claim they are. And that was the first song. The second song was sometimes, even though you don't have this, you're not supposed to be the one doing the talking. If God gives it to you, then it's your turn. And I'm a firm believer that we're not going to stop Christ and his movement. That's just not going to happen. And then this song here is mercy covers everything we've ever done, everything we've ever gone through. And so I'm going to not try to keep you very long. Let me tell you first off, I am not a preacher or speaker. I do have a testimony, and my testimony, I have felt for a while that I needed to help people, and I feel like this is probably the beginning of me maybe being where I can go to other places and give it, because there's some things here I'm going to, let me not get ahead of myself. I believe that God's chosen this time for me to share it. In the times we're living, I might touch on a few topics that may be a little controversial, but my sole purpose is to encourage, renew, revive, and refresh any woman that may be going through any of the possible topics I might discuss today. I have survived and thrived through many tests. I hope and pray that my experiences might be a help to someone here today, or someone you might meet in your walk with Jesus. Now, I know I don't look it, but I am 62 years old, and I have went to this church here off and on since I was 13 years old, so almost 50 years now. So, I've been in this for a while, and I know a lot of people when they first get saved, they want to just take off and run and do, and that gets them in trouble sometimes because they don't realize they need to grow a little bit before they just take off and run. This is not a sprint. This is a long-lasting thing. Today I'm going to talk about several topics. Some I will discuss more than others. Some I'm just going to touch on softly and move on. My hope and prayer is that something I say today through Christ might be of help to someone here today, or they can take something with them that they may help someone else in something in the future. We've been studying Revelations here, and we've been studying different things. Numbers are important. Does anybody know what the number 7 is? Completion. When God gave me my notes, he gave me 7 topics. Church betrayal, church breakups, cancer, being jobless, heart attack, back surgery, and my husband's affair. So, each one of these will be something that I'll touch on, some a little bit more than others. When we started this conference, Denise Rambo and I sat right here. And we started out, we did a 3-day, it was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And it was a little bit more, we bit off a little bit more than chew. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you, we did. It was a great conference, don't get me wrong, but it was a little bit more than what we could chew. And so we didn't overextend ourselves, but we learned from that experience. The conference has outlasted several that had started working on this event. We had always worked to fundraise to make money for Lydia. We didn't want to charge for this event. We don't ever charge. But I will say this, and I forgot to mention this morning. On the table back there and on the table over here, there's 2 little purple 31 bags. If you have a love offering before you leave today, they are appreciated. They do make the little goodies that you take home today, and you got a little bag full of goodies. And we have some other things before the end of the day, and your food And all of that is paid for through, and we no longer do fundraisers. Marianne and I are the two final women that are working this conference, and each one of us put a certain amount of money in every month, and that money, God blessed it. And that's the money that we use to do what we do to bless you guys today. One thing I just really had a problem with was charging for the conference. I know a lot of conferences do charge a cover, and it does help with the overhead, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted this to be purely about coming and being blessed of God, and you being blessed from the time you walk in to the time you walk out. That's my purpose in doing what I do. A few years into the conference, there were a lot of things happening here at the church, and I felt God was allowing me to leave the church, and I did. And I still attended church, but I didn't attend here. And I felt it as a punishment to me, but whenever I left, there was some money here in the church money that was highlighted for Lydia, and they withdrew that funding. And I felt very betrayed, and it took a long time of rest and restoration at another church for me to get past that hurt. And one of the things that I can say, and I'm sure anybody that's been hurt in a church hurt is like no other hurt there ever is. There's not another hurt like being hurt in church. But don't give up on Jesus. He didn't hurt you. He's there to listen and help you grow through any experience, good or bad. And actually, we grow through the bad more than we grow through the good. I know no one here has had to experience a church breakup. That was funny, I know. People are people, and they have different opinions and ideas. And sometimes we get out of the will of God, and we just do things we should do. And sometimes they can't get past themselves, and so there's a split. This church here has split several times. And sometimes it's over something just, I'm not saying this church here, but I heard some preachers one time say, he thought knew a church that had split over a lemon meringue pie. You know what I'm saying? It's just fine. Anyway. What we really have seen is Satan working and thinking that he's winning. But Jesus has a plan. Jesus and his people win in the end. I've seen several church splits. Lots of times these people come back. Sometimes they don't. The thing is that each time we survive a split, we're growing as Christians and are letting Satan know that he's not winning. And that's the thing. And I guess I'm a firm believer that if God moves you and puts you in a church, that's where you're supposed to be. And if he tells you it's time to move, then you better move. I had a man standing right back here one day, and I said, you know right from wrong, and you know what you're supposed to be doing. He said, but what if what God's telling me is to leave this church? I said, then leave. And he sort of stepped back a little. I said, if God's telling you to do it, then you better do it. You're not ever going to prosper if you don't stay in the will of God. And God is somebody that is, he's not going to tell you to do something, but that's not what he wants you to do. The next thing is cancer. On April the 25th, 1992, I gave birth to Tamara. The person's been doing the dance, if you don't know, she's my daughter. A few minutes later, and since it's all women up here, I'm going to be very blunt about some things here, okay? And I told Tamara before I did this, I said, there's stuff in here that you know, stuff that you probably don't know. Don't be offended by what I say today about anything I say today, okay? But a few months later, I got to spotting. and I just spotted it all the time. It was a real dark discharge. So I went back to the doctor, and he said, it's just because you had that baby, and he gave me some hormones. Well, I trusted him. So I went on and started taking hormones, and that's fine. Well, I quit spotting them. And then I just quit having a period altogether. I just didn't have no more bleeding at all. And of course, that didn't bother me. Okay, I'm just not one that just didn't bother me at all, but I wasn't having periods. It didn't give me a minute's trouble. My mom, on the other hand, was my mom. So after quite a while, she'd call every day. She started. I said, no, you need to go to the doctor. So I finally called, and I got in to see a doctor. And he was only at the clinic over there for just a few months, probably less than a year or less. And because he was new, I got in to see him fairly quickly. He wasn't the one that delivered Tamara, but I got in to see him fairly quickly. So I went in, and I told him, I just not had a period. And he said, and he gave me all this list of stuff it could be, it could be this, it could be that. He said, but I'm telling you right now, it's because you're fat. I said, okay. I said, but let me tell you something. I said, when I was pregnant, I said, I puked from dark to dark. I'd be able to get up and get my shower. I usually had 1 foot out of the tub, and I was puking. And I puked till I went back to bed. And I said, I lost 25 pounds while I carried her. Then I gave birth to a 7-pound, 11-ounce baby. So somewhere along the way, I said, I weigh less now than I probably ever weighed in my life. He said, well, okay. So he gave me a pregnancy test and done some things. And he gave me a prescription for some more hormones. And he sent me home. And he said, now don't fill these hormones till we get this pregnancy test back. I said, okay. So they call me, and they tell me that I'm pregnant, not to get the hormones filled. I need to make a prenatal appointment, and I did. So I went in, and he said, I went in, and he told me that he could not find a baby. They did an ultrasound, and they couldn't find a baby, but they found a mass. And he said, most likely what it is, you have miscarried, and I need to do a D&C. So I said, okay. So I had a D&C, and it was August and hot. Oh my gosh, it was so hot. And our air conditioner went out home. I've never forgot that. And of course, after you have a little surgery, you always go back a few days later, And of course, he had sent this off to biopsy it. So when we went back, and this is a fine example of bad news, they didn't take me to an examining room. They took me in his little office with his desk. It just happened Ronald went with me. I don't really know why, but he was with me that day. And this doctor looked at me, and he said, Miss Stallins, he said, when I met you the other day, and I told you several scenarios that could be wrong. And remember, he told me I was fat. Y'all remember that? He said, I never dreamed that the worst scenario I could say to you, what I said, the worst thing could happen, is what I'm going to have to tell you today is what's wrong. And to give you a really long name, it's a placental-site trophoblastic tumor. That's what it was. He said, now I could go in tomorrow and do a hysterectomy. He said, I just don't know enough about this cancer. And he said, it's really rare. And so he said, there's a doctor in Louisville that has done this surgery, and I need you to go see him. So we take off to Louisville. I saw the specialist on a Thursday, and he said, I felt the tumor as soon as I examined you. And he said, I know that it's, this particular cancer, there's no survivors. He said, I've not seen anybody survive this cancer. And he said, we had one woman, and said she quit coming for her checkups, and said she finally passed away from it. So I saw him on Thursday. He set my surgery up for Saturday morning at 6 o'clock. I ever heard of surgery doing surgery on Saturday morning at 6 o'clock and scheduling it that way. And so I remember him coming in to see me, and they were wheeling me out, and he was walking down the hall, and the last thing I saw this doctor was his cowboy boots as he's walking away from me. And it's funny how things stick in your mind after 20-something years, 27 years. It's funny how certain little things stick in your mind. And unbeknownst to me at that time, this doctor had cancer. He was scheduled for surgery on Monday morning, and he didn't live a year. So this past September the 11th, I celebrated 27 years cancer-free.
Amen.
I will say this. The doctor in Madisonville, if he'd been one of the other doctors, he would have probably tried to doctor me, and I would not be here today. I am a firm believer that God set these men in place to doctor me and to make sure that I was still here. I had a baby just about 18 months old that I had to walk off and leave and never know if I'd ever see her again. And women, all of y'all that's got kids, you know how hard something like that is. So understand that this was hard on me, and I had to really work back, and I really had to work to get there. I came home from the hospital, and now I had to go back. At first, it was just every few weeks, and then every few months, and then, in my 5-year checkup, the doctor that took over my case. Now, I will say this. I never took one bit of chemo, one bit of radiation, and in 5 years, the doctor told me, you're cancer-free, go and enjoy your life. So I give all the praise and glory to God, because I knew I just did not want to go through those treatments, and God did not make me go through them. So I came home, tried to heal, tried to go back to work, and I did go back to work. And I was working for the pantry. I was a store manager. And I had a girl working for me that wanted my job more than I did. And my job right then was to fight to live, to raise my daughter, not fight to have a job. So I ended up without a job. I walked off of a job I'd had for over 17 years. Went to work at the pantry when I was 18. And I worked there till I walked out that day. But I wasn't willing to fight her for it. Now, the hard part about this is this girl, her daddy was my pastor at that time. And Ronald just wanted to keep going to church up there, and I couldn't. I couldn't go to church and sit down with her. There was a pain and a hurt in me for what she was doing to me and what she done to me. She took away our livelihood. And we had no income. And I couldn't go sit in church with her. I just couldn't. But I was sitting at home one day, and a friend of mine called, and she had a little computer job, little computer business. And she said, Janice, she said, I'm going to start teaching. And I need somebody to come sit in my house, answer my phone. And a lot of times she'd just transfer the calls to my house, and I wouldn't even have to go nowhere. And she gave me about $100 a week, and that was enough to buy us a few groceries. And that kept us going. And I've been forever grateful. She's one of the best friends I've ever had. We had to file bankruptcy because of all the medical bills. And the day we got back from court, if nobody has ever done that, that is one of the most degrading things you will ever go through in your life. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be something shameful for that, especially for the reason we had the medical bills. It should not be something shameful that the medical bills are so expensive you can't pay them. But it is. And when I come back home, I opened up the door and I walked in. I hit my knees and I cried to God. I was so ashamed and so embarrassed that I had to do that. I really felt bad. I'm sorry for the tears, but they'll probably get worse as they go. So I'm going back to my health again. Now, like most women, I guess, I know Vicki said she was a fixer and a doer, and me too. I think it has to be done. It has to be done the way I want it done most of the time. So, and at Christmas, I'm a big Christmas. Heck, I like Halloween. I decorate for Halloween. I decorate everything. I used to. I don't now, but I used to. I decorate my house for everything that come along. It was 4th of July. I had little things set out, 4th of July stuff. I just think I love having little stuff. Makes me feel good. And so we're up to 2007. And I don't know about y'all's family, but when I married Ron, he had a daughter from another marriage, which means he had to work around holidays with her. And then had his mama's family, his mama and family, and my mama and family. Well, everybody decided they wanted to have dinner at the same time, same day. You know, don't nobody want to share. Okay, so, but for some odd reason on this particular night, it was Christmas Eve. And for some odd reason, we wasn't having Christmas, but we had went down to Ronald's mama's for some reason. I don't know why. And, but we were down there, and we were watching, you would go again, I can remember exactly what we was watching on TV. We was watching, well, I can't think of the name of it. It's where they got the suitcases of money. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay. That's what, and I never watched it before. It was on, and I got interested in it. So Ronald said, "You ready to go?" And I said, "Yeah, if you're ready, let's go." And you have to go through her kitchen, and then she's got a little back porch thing there. Then you step out of the back door out to the yard. And when I stepped out, oh my goodness, I like to went to the ground. And Ronald, for some reason, he was behind me and he grabbed me. And he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I don't think so." So we went ahead and got in the car. Now for y'all that don't know my husband and my daughter, they don't get along for any reason at any time. Okay? Never have, probably never will. But that's beyond the point. The point is this. We got in the car and he said, I could not even catch my breath. He said, "I think I need to take you to the hospital." And I said, "I think you do too." Now, for me to say, yes, I need to go to the emergency room, there's something wrong. You know that. So here we take off. And of course, he thinks he has to drive really fast. Okay? She gets car sick. So she's in the back seat. "Daddy, I'm going to puke." He said, "Well, roll the window down." Of course, at the time we had a car that only went halfway down because it was child-proof. She couldn't get her head out the window to throw up. She said, "I'm going to throw up in the car." And he said, "You need to clean it up." They fought all the way. Now, his mom lives out here at Mincer. They fought from Mincer over to Massaville. And of course, usually, anytime you want to see a cop, you don't see any. So he just kept going right on through town. Hit his flashers and kept going. So I get there, and if you go in with heart, if you've not ever been over there with heart, one of the first things they do is they do put an EKG on you. And if it shows any activity, but you back there in the back really quick. Okay, so here I go. I put me back there in the back, and they're back there working. And then all of a sudden, I just sort of pass out. And when I come back, all I saw was the lights appear. And there was about 15 or 20 people in that little examining room. There was a doctor standing there, but I mean, he was signing off orders to do blah, 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 blah. So then I had to go to have x-rays and all that stuff. Well, they had 2 nurses that stayed with me the whole time after that. And come to find out, they had to shock me. And the nurses were talking. And I guess they wasn't realizing how much I could pay attention and hear what they're saying. But they said that I'd been 2 minutes later, they couldn't have done anything to save me. A 2-minute span there is what I was there. And they had to shock me or I would have died. So, I got to praying, and I said, God, I said, you know if you're finished with me yet. You know if you still got work for me to do. And you know if Tamara is ready to let me go. Now, Tamara was 15?
Yeah.
15. And she still wasn't a grown woman. So, you know, and that was my prayer. And there was just a peace come over me. And the rest of the night, all I did was apologize to people. This was Christmas Eve, and Christmas morning, and Christmas Day, and I messed up everything. They took me down to put a stent in to try to do a heart cath. And that doctor worked on me for over 3 hours, I think. And he finally come up there and patted me on the arm. He said, Miss Stallins, he said, honey, I've tried everything I've got in this hospital, and I can't get nothing in there to give you any peace. He said, if I can just get one in. He said, we won't have to operate right now. He said, but the heart doctor's here. He's been watching everything I've been doing. He's calling his team, and they'll be here, and then they're going to operate. Well, they got ready to take me to the operating room, and I'm real allergic to latex, so they had to clean the, sterilize the operating room where they could take me. And I went through, they started surgery about 3 o'clock Christmas morning. Like I say, I apologized all the way through. But I tell you what, I am a firm believer that those heart people at Baptist Health at Masseyville are some of the best there are. I mean, that's it. About 3 or 4 years ago, no, it's almost be 6 years in May, I had to have a pacemaker put in. And if you don't know, when they put a pacemaker in, they actually stop your heart like they do, you know. And they kept putting these pads. They put these pads on you when you go in there. And they put these pads on, and I said, boy, those are so warm. It's always cold in that place somewhere anyway, you know. And I said, boy, those are so warm. And I said, yes, ma'am, we got cold ones and warm ones. And so they put these on me. And that morning when I got back upstairs after they put this in, I got back upstairs, a nurse come in, this little male nurse, and he come in, he pulled my top down, he said, I gotta look to see if you're burned. I said, burned? He said, yeah, I gotta see if you're burned. I said, why would I be burned? He said, they had to shock you. He said, the first time they shocked you, you didn't come back. He said they had to move it up to 600 to shock you to bring your heart back. And he said, I gotta see if it burnt you. Well, it did burn me, it just brought me, you know, it just looked like that. But the heart doctor came over and put this in, he said, I never ever put on but 1 set of pads. He said, I've never put on 2 sets of pads in my life. He said, I called my team that morning, told them to put 2 sets of pads on. He said, they questioned me. He said, don't question me, I just need 2 sets of pads put on this morning. I said, well, he said, it was just something told me. I said, I tell you what it was. I said, it was God. God told you to put that second set on there or I wouldn't be here. I know that. But long story short, it's a long recovery from open heart surgery. You have to learn what you can and what you can't do. And you have to learn that it's okay to say no. And it's okay to ask for help. Now, I don't ask for help very often, so when I do, I get a little frustrated, especially at Tammy and Ronald, if I say, I need you to do this. I sort of mean I need it right then. I don't need it next week. I need you to take the time to do what I'm asking. And it might not be anything any more than I need you to get up and cook supper because I don't feel like it. But sometimes I feel like they don't listen. I'm there so much and they just sort of don't pay attention to the fact that sometimes I really do need that. So then my mother-in-law had to have some surgery. She had to have these arteries cleaned out her neck. We'd been at the hospital all day, and now I've always had back trouble. I just have. My back hurts all the time. And but that day we'd been at the hospital, and of course she was in ICU, so we had a long wait period to be able to go back to see her. So we ran home, and I got up and went to the kitchen to fix me something to drink. And buddy, I nearly went to the floor. I want to scream it. Never in my life. Now I had a C-section with Tamara. Women don't get me mad. I never had any pain. I had one pain that felt like I need pass gas. That's all that pain I ever had having a child. But I never felt pain in my life like I felt the day my back went out. And apparently what had happened is that when that bone popped down, it pinched that nerve. And buddy, there it went, this whole leg and my foot. You know, the cartoons where they blow the people's heads off or whatever. I felt like my foot was gone. I honestly did. At that time, they had a doctor over at St. Charles. So Ron takes me over there. It just happened. It was a night that's open late. Well, she gave me a pain shot and told me to come back the next morning if it wasn't any better. Well, I got the next morning, but I couldn't move. Well, when we got to St. Charles, the doctor had called in sick. And so the nurse came out, gave me a shot of Demerol. She pulled my pants down, gave me a shot of Demerol in my thigh, told Ron to take me on to the emergency room. So the nurse comes in and she gives me something. And so she said, what's your pain level? She said, 1 to 10. I said, about 50. She said, no, ma'am. She said, I'll give you a shot of Demerol. I said, yeah, and I went to the nurse and doctor before they got here, and they gave me some. That's I can't Percocet to take along at home. I said, but I'm telling you, I'm in pain. So I ended up, it was a little bit of wait there, but I ended up having to go to Evansville and have my back surgery. This leg is what they call a dead leg now, from my right below my knee down. And I have very, very little feeling, a lot of pain sometimes, but very little feeling in it. But it's, when I went back to work, I had to go back to work within 30 days after I had my back surgery. If not, I was going to lose my insurance. So I went in, and the job I was doing, they'd give to somebody else while I was gone. So they give me a job of going into this room with this woman that she had some kids that were very unruly. And so I went down to help babysit kids. That's what I had to do. I graded some papers for them. That's about it. And then as time went on and I've got a little bit of strength built up, he came down there one day and he said, I need you to go do this job. And he said, yours from now. And so they gave me that job until I left. That's where I was until I left. So now we've been through a whole lot. Most of this has been health-wise. But I have had, some of it is just hurt feelings, hurtfulness, a lot of things I've been through. And now, this next part is going to be a little touchy, so I'm probably not going to get as deep into it as I could, but there's all different kinds of hurts and all kinds of different levels of hurt. And God can repair any hurt, and He can supply what's needed to repair that hurt. Now, I'm gonna move on up to where Tamara was, 5 years old, I guess. Is my 12th wedding anniversary. And my husband packs his stuff and moves out. Got him a girlfriend. Got him a girlfriend. And she made him feel so young. Made him just feel so good. The worst part of this is I had made a statement one time that I never figured my husband would cheat on me because he's afraid he'd get something like AIDS or something. Well, this particular woman that he decided he wanted to go away with, if anybody in Hopkins County would have had it, she would have. It's just a plain simple. We ain't gonna go and dumb more further than that. But she was married to my brother for a wee bit of time. My birthday present to myself that year was to go borrow $500 and pay off their divorce. So that was how much I was having to get ready for at that time. So then my husband decided that this was his new girlfriend and just made him feel so good. I really struggled with this. Because like I said, it was not something I expected at all. And I said, I just ended up taking Tamara to my mom and my sister-in-law and said, y'all gonna have to take her. Because I just couldn't handle it. And one Wednesday afternoon, I sat in the floor of my house with a phone book, and I called every church I could find and asked for prayer. Every church, every preacher I could find, I called and asked for prayer for my family. One preacher I finally got a hold of just told me, he said, I can't let you get off this phone until I talk to you. I mean, I was that upset, and he knew it. And God, I guess, gave him, I don't even remember who he was or anything. But he talked to me, and he talked me down a whole lot. But I had people praying, and you know, that was a deep hurt. His cousin knew it, hid it from me. My cousin knew it, hid it from me. If he had done it behind closed doors, it would have been one thing, but he done it on the CB radio, so everybody that had a CB knew it. I even went to a woman's house and listened to them talk on the CB radio. Because they would change and go to a private little channel, and I just flipped over there with them, and I could keep up. And I could hear everything they saying. Everything they saying. And one night he didn't come home. And the next morning, my brother was a gossip person. And I'm not talking bad about it. If there was a piece of information, he knew it. I mean, he knew it just like that. And he had to tell everybody he could tell. So he calls and he said, there's working down at Stony Point at a coal mines. And he called and he said, Janice, he said, somebody got killed in there at coal mines. Well, Ron wasn't home. He didn't come home at night. I was terrified. So I got to calling and I called his cousin, and she said her husband was working with Ron. And she told him, she said, Janice is really upset. I said, somebody got killed down there. And he said, well, he was, and told me where he was at. And I said, okay, so at least I knew he was alive. And so I really wasn't ready to give up on this, but I knew that when I married him with the intention of it being forever. And so it's not been an easy walk with him, still not, but it's something that God put back together, because otherwise it would have never worked. And this December, we'll be married 34 years. So, you know, but it's been a long, hard road. Getting back from that was hard. And like I say, there's been lots of little hurts, lots of things going on. And I'm almost through here. Genesis 16:13 talks about a woman that God sees. Does God see you? Does he know you? And the biggest question is, do you know him? And I don't mean as an acquaintance. Do you know him? Because you need to know him. Luke 7:36-50, and y'all can look these up and read them. I'm not going to read all this, way too much scripture to read. It tells the story of a sinner woman with an alabaster box, a jar. And she used that to pour over Jesus' feet. This lady taught us that not everyone will agree with or understand what you do for God, but do it anyway. If God tells you to do it, do it. And I mean, a lot of times I've seen people do weird things and say, well, God told me to do it. And I guess some of the things I wouldn't say that I wouldn't do, but Jesus would have to really, really kick my butt to make me do something. Okay? But anyway, if he gives you something to do and a job to do, that's yours. So please honor him. John 8:1-11 tells the story of a woman that was taken before Jesus to be stoned. After writing in the sand, all her accusers left. And Jesus looked up and said, where are they? She said, they all left. And he says, you go and don't sin no more. Luke 8:40-56 and John 10:10 tells the story of a woman with an issue of blood that had been sick for years and touched the hem of Jesus' garment and was immediately healed. We also read about Jesus raising Jairus' daughter from the dead. I can tell you that I hung on to the hem of his garment for dear life during my cancer and during my back surgery, because those are lonely, long recovery periods. And you're left a lot of times by yourself. And a lot of time for Satan to attack your mind. Luke 10:38-42 tells the story of two sisters. In this story, one sister is doing all the work, the other spending time with Jesus. And of course, the one doing the work has to point this out to Jesus. Seeking Jesus and putting him first in your life will offer only peace and joy. Now, I know those are words that you use this morning a lot. And those two words, peace and joy, at different times have been themes that we used for Lydia. Luke 13:10-17 tells the story of the woman that was bent over and had been for years. Jesus heals her and she stands up straight and walks away. Was it a physical ailment that had her bent over? Or could it maybe have been worry and depression? Either way, she was healed. The word you prayed over me this morning. John 20:11-18 tells us the story of Mary Magdalene. Mary was the first to see Jesus after he rose from the dead. She didn't recognize him, but then he said, Mary. And she knew from the sound of his voice that this was her Messiah, her teacher, her master. Her focus was on an empty grave, as we are often focused on the wrong things in our lives. But when Jesus spoke her name, he got her attention. Sometimes he has to get our attention, and sometimes he has to call our name. At some point in my life, I've been all these women. I've done Bible studies on women. We do Bible studies here. We did do them a whole lot. With this COVID, we sort of got out of them, but oh boy, I miss them. I really miss them. We've learned so much. And we've studied the women in the Bible several different times. We've done bad girls of the Bible. And I ended up being a bad girl this time, but anyway. And we've learned many, many great lessons from these women. I urge you to take the time to study each woman in the Bible. They have much to say, and we have much to learn. If you don't know Jesus, we will be happy to introduce you to him today. Jesus is my life, my salvation, my soul. He's the one to whom my soul belongs. I'm here today, a survivor. I have survived each one of these. It might not look like I'm thriving, But believe me, I could be in a whole lot worse shape and situation than I am. And I have survived, and to me, I am thriving. And God's not through with me because there's still work to be done. And I know that. And if I know we had several in the altar this morning, but if you have a need, if you need prayer for anything at all, we'll be happy to pray for you right now. And I hope that something I said today, I hope at least one of these 7 women was something that you needed to hear. And I know right now, and I don't think she'll care, Marge has had some cancers removed, and she's going tomorrow to get the results. They were malignant, but we're going to believe that she's not going to have any treatments, and that she's going to walk away from this a healed woman, completely healed from this point. We're going to believe that. Surgery doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. It can mean just getting rid and digging into. And sometimes Jesus has to do surgery on us, and it's as painful, more painful than when the doctors do it. So, if anybody needs prayer, we will take just a second. Let me get a drink, and then if anybody needs prayer, you can come up.